Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, ladies and gentlemen in the gallery, my fellow Arkansans watching online. The people of Arkansas have sent us here to this chamber to be their representatives as part of our Republican form of government. We are charged with the task of setting the public policy of our state and responsibly spending the money government, both state and federal, collects from hardworking Arkansas taxpayers. I am proud to serve along with you, my fellow members, who took it upon yourselves to sacrifice and be the voice of nearly 30,000 citizens in our respective districts. We did so knowing the pay wasn't very good, we'd be spending time away from our families and friends, and that our real-life professions would suffer. We did so because we chose to serve our fellow Arkansans, to speak on their behalf because they are too busy raising their families, putting a roof over their head, clothes on their backs, and food on their table. We were sent here to make choices for them as part of a covenant between our constituents and ourselves. As the majority leader of this House, I have an additional covenant with my fellow Republicans. As the majority leader, I also maintain a covenant with all of my colleagues to attempt to maintain comedy in this chamber where we all sit, thanks to the permission granted to us by the people. Of those covenants, the one that I maintain with my constituents is the one I hold most sacred. Therefore, I do not stand before you as the majority leader. I do not stand before you as a Republican. I simply stand before you as a representative of the hardworking Arkansas taxpayers who have given me their permission to speak and act on their behalf. I rise today in opposition to this particular legislation, but I do not rise to simply say no. I rise today to say yes to real, permanent reform of our state's Medicaid system, because that is the real goal we need to achieve in our state. Lasting Medicaid reforms are what our state needs to move forward. And I will say yes to any plan that reforms the inefficiencies in our system on a permanent, not temporary basis. And I will also say yes to any plan that promotes moving people towards self-sufficiency, not a plan that takes them off of one entitlement and moves them onto another that has a more palatable name. The expansion plan we are considering today is the fruit of labors by members and senators that I respect and consider to be dear friends. As you know, I personally invested time to put this bill together. I joined the effort to write this bill in order to try and work through the challenges it faces and be able to deliver to you and the people of Arkansas a plan that will be a palatable solution to the Federal Affordable Care Act that has left so many people in our state and nation with a sour taste in their mouths. Regrettably, I could not get to that point in the time frame that has been laid out for us in this House. Therefore, I removed my name from the list of those who support it. It is not that I believe that my colleagues remaining on this bill are on the wrong path. Rather, I believe this approach does not allow us to arrive at the goal that I and they have for the public policy of our state. The expansion plan being put forward is the work of people that I respect tremendously. It is a piece of work that is in the best traditions of the House, and the work that went into it honors the covenant that we as legislators have with our constituents. However, as we continue to rush towards the arbitrary deadline before us, we no longer had the luxury of time to try to get rid of the sour taste of the Affordable Care Act. As we kept coming closer to a certain date on the calendar, I was forced to start looking at the work and make a decision. Based upon my examination, and in no small part to the limited amount of communication from Washington, D.C., which is a couple of paragraphs addressed to us in a nondescript memo to the rest of the nation, I came to the conclusion that this plan is not in the best interest of our state at this time. The current legislation before us is but a mere few weeks old. In addition to the scant guidance coming from Washington, there has only been one third-party analysis of this plan. The supplemental materials, the pie charts and handouts presented to you and the press are coming from state agencies and outside firms who have a vested interest in this decision. Our covenant is not with the state agencies or the firms looking to spend the free money we have been promised. No, our covenant remains with the hardworking Arkansas taxpayers who know that every dollar government takes out of their pockets is not free. The Affordable Care Act is an uncertain law with an uncertain future. It is a flawed law where new flaws are discovered regularly, and HHS is seemingly throwing its policies and rules together on an ad hoc basis. Every number that we are talking about is subject to the whim of Congress, and we are one sequester agreement, debt ceiling agreement, continuing resolution, or budget deal away from having this expansion proposal become untenable. There are many triggers and circuit breakers in this bill designed to protect our state. I have proposed some of those. This chamber should be proud of our colleagues in the many ways they have attempted to protect the interest of our state. However, there still remains over $400 million in projected savings that can be taken away by Congress in a snap. And we have no way to protect ourselves based on the language in this bill. Many of us in this chamber today scoffed at the remark made by then Speaker Nancy Pelosi that Congress needed to pass what we called Obamacare in order to find out what was in it. It would be easy for me to make a similar comparison to what is happening here today, but that would be unfair to my colleagues. Rather, I submit to you that this is instead a situation where we are being asked to sign the biggest contract in the history of our state, then begin executing that contract before the other party in our contract has agreed to sign it. For my colleagues who deal with contracts in their real lives back home, would that be a prudent way for you to conduct your business? I will leave it to you to answer that question. Finally, a new talking point has been interjected into this debate. The do-nothing talking point and its negative implication of those who are withholding their support of this legislation. I ask you, is it do-nothing to have serious concerns about our nation adding to its debt? I remind my colleagues that we are in a unique position as members of this House. While it may be Congress's call to continue its runaway spending and send billions of dollars in borrowed money to Arkansas, it is our call as to whether or not we enable its spending. I will acknowledge that our state receives federal dollars for other programs and that we as a House approve those expenditures, but I reject the false notion that if we do not agree to this based on a certain principle, then we should therefore send all the federal money back. It's a good tweet, a good bumper sticker, a good rhetorical quip, but we must rise above that level of debate, for this plan is different than a road or school or other established program. This plan is new. Its rules are still being determined, and its first check is yet to be written. We have the opportunity to get this right, and if that means stopping here in order to create a permanent reform, then I say yes. That is not doing nothing. And is it really doing nothing to choose to wait until the federal government agrees to its half of the largest contract in the history of our state? Is it really doing nothing to demand the opportunity to explain this expansion plan for more than a couple of hours to the people who elected us? Is it really doing nothing to listen to the voices of thousands of Arkansans who either do not want this plan or wish us to wait? I will leave it to you to answer those questions. As for me, I choose to fight for permanent reforms of our state's Medicaid system. I choose to oppose this bill for the reasons I have described. I choose to honor my covenant with my constituents. That's not nothing. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for allowing me the opportunity to address the House, and thank you, members, for your attention and your consideration, and I encourage you to vote no on this legislation.